What has to be said, though, is that the Russians, at least in recent months, they didn't do it immediately. They were probably still hoping for a quick win, but once they realized that this is dragging out, they did start ramping up production to wartime levels, introducing 3 shifts a day in their factories, and really increasing production. Naturally, they have problems due to Western sanctions. There is a lot of components that are lacking, especially these more modern pieces of equipment that are needed for communication equipment or optics, for example. They are getting some of it through evading sanctions by using third parties to import it. A lot of these components are actually still made in the European Union, and through various ways make their way to Russia. But the process has been complicated. So if the West could finally also start ramping up its production to wartime levels, then the Ukrainian army would be in a very good position to simply out-equip.
Well, that's of course the big question, isn't it? If the West will actually increase production.
Yes.
And I mean, when we draw historical parallels, it's interesting to note that I think during the Second World War, German industrial production reached its peak in, I think it was 1943, which is an extraordinary achievement.
Absolutely.
After several years of war, to be actually still producing that amount.
This was also one of the German mistakes, that initially on they thought that they wanted to spare their civil society from the burden that wartime production would mean, since civilian products that are needed would simply be in, there would be a shortage for them. So even after the invasion of Poland, after the invasion of France, after the Battle of Britain, and even after the launch of Operation Barbarossa, the German economy was still not in wartime production. It's first in 1942 and 43. There is this famous speech where Goebbels speaks about total war. Do you want total war? We'll give it to you. And that shows that they really adapted that approach in 42 and 43. And then it was a lag for a couple of months before they could really implement it. But it does show that the Germans started switching to full wartime production at a moment when they had already reached their climax, so to say, when their luck of war, so to say, had turned, when their Operation Blau, their push towards the Caucasus in the summer of 1942 had failed, and when they had been beaten in 43 at Stalingrad and at that famous tank battle at Kursk.
Still the largest tank battle, I think, in military history.
It certainly is, and if we look at that specific battle, it also, we can draw some parallels to what we can expect in Ukraine and in coming weeks and months. The Russians were fortunate because they had received information from the Allies, partly thanks to breaking the Enigma code, that the Germans were planning a major armored offensive in the Kursk area. So the Soviets knew about that, and they started preparing for it by preparing a strategy of defense in depth. They simply started digging these anti-tank obstacles. You could say anti-tank trenches, because they are a little bit wider than your average trench. And then normal trenches as well. And instead of having 3, 4, 5, or 6 lines, they would have 15 or 20 such lines. And when the German armor attacked, they might break through 3, 4, 5, but getting past 8, 9, or 10 proved impossible. So these tanks would be taken out, and at the end, the Red Army would launch a classical pincer maneuver, and the Germans had to withdraw under heavy losses. What we have been seeing in Bakhmut in recent weeks and months is also a defense depth strategy. Naturally, the city itself is, as the Ukrainians themselves call it, a fortress, Fortezza Bakhmut. But around it, they have been preparing these defenses even before the war even started, since Bakhmut was so close to the front lines that they knew if there will be an attack in the future, this city will be a big price, and we have to prepare good defenses. But then,
Adam, as usual, the clock in the corner of the room has defeated us, so I'll have to ask you to pause there, but we'll pick it up next time. There we are, as usual, defeated by time, but fear not, if you join us next time, as we hope you will, we'll pick up the story here on Poland Daily History. In the meantime, thank you for watching and see you next time.